today. UFC 323 is one in the books, and in the main event, we have a new bantamweight champion of the world as Petr Yan goes out there and defeats Merab Dvalishvili. And what about in the co-main event, where my guy Alexandre Pantoja loses the flyweight championship of the world due to injury stoppage? Did he break his elbow? Did he tear his shoulder? Did it pop out of place? Did it get popped back in place? We don't know. But shout out to Joshua Van, as he is now the new flyweight champion of the world. And there were some other standout moments. What about Macy Barber? What y'all got to say about Macy Barber now? After the seizures and the not making the main events, she goes out there and she does her thing. What about my guy, Jan Blachowicz, with the draw? You know what I'm saying? What about the multiple finishes on this card? What about this card outside the Alexandre Pantoja fight being one of the better cards of the entire year of 2025? Fitting that this could be the last pay-per-view, at least the last pay-per-view for a long time. There's a whole lot going on here, and we got to dive in it. All up in it. Deep up in it. Pause. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's Go Cardinals all day. You know what I'm saying? We out here doing big things in the basketball game. You know what I'm talking about? Nevertheless, man, let's get off into it. UFC 323 is over. And we have a new bantamweight champion of the world. And his name is Petr Yan. Let's talk about this real quick. Petr Yan goes out there and puts on a championship performance against Merab Dvalishvili. Championship performance. Now here's the thing, man. As this fight was building up the whole week, I'm the person when it comes to watching combat sports, I pay attention to everything. It's not just the fight, it's not just the skills. So many people try to pick winners and losers or pick or determine what's going to happen in a lot of these fights based out of sheer skills. Who can fight? Are they a striker? Are they a wrestler? Can they do both? Do they have cardio? What's their stamina like? Who's their coaches? All of this, right? And they try to go out here and determine what's going to happen. But I'm very much a person that looks at any sport, not just mixed martial arts, as it's everything surrounding. If you're talking about like football, basketball, anything like that, it's everything surrounding that player or players going into that game. And the same thing with fighting. When you talk about their media obligations, when you talk about their family, are they going through a divorce? Did their side piece get caught? Did their wife find their side piece? What's going on there? Are there issues within the camp? You know what I'm saying? Is somebody going in the gym refrigerator and stealing all the snacks while everyone else is training? We needs to know. You know what I'm talking about? Those are the type of things that I'm taking into consideration. So as I'm watching this fight week, I'm noticing that it looked like Merab was really feeling Merab. It looked like Merab was really feeling Merab. And it looked like, in my opinion, what I saw is Petr Yan through the entire week knew that everyone was counting him out, including me. He knew everyone was counting him out. He knew everyone wasn't taking him seriously. He knew everyone is falling into the game. Oh yes, I do big things and I'm a good fighter, and Petr Yan, I defeat him and then I move on. Everyone is falling into the game of Merab. They're following him. They're all up into his little shenanigans and the little weird stuff he says. And everybody's going by that. And Petr Yan is not. Petr Yan is chilling. Petr Yan is waiting for his opportunity to show the world. And so then I'm watching him walk to the octagon. And Petr Yan looked it's not the most serious that I've seen him look, but he looked confident. He looked like he knew something that the rest of us didn't know. And I'm watching Merab walk to the octagon, and he looks like he's really playing it up. You know what I'm saying? He looks like he's really playing it up. He's almost like he's playing a character of himself. Especially as he's walking into the octagon and he's looking around, he's waving it up and he's flexing and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay. But you'd have to watch enough sports of all of these athletes to notice the things that I'm talking about. But you notice when certain teams, certain fighters, certain players have won a lot, and they're already given the benefit of the doubt. Hey, this motherfucker get ready to go in there and do damage. This team's get ready to go in there and win. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Ain't nothing you can do to stop it. They getting ready to win. And when someone gets to that level, mark my words, that's when you're going to start seeing issues with their performances, because it's almost like they begin to believe in that. Take a look back at John Jones when he fought Alexander Gustafsson the first time. He was really in that John Jones mindset. He was really feeling himself. And he was on, a few ounces of blow from the night before. You know what I'm talking about? But still, you can see it on a lot of players, and in this case on a lot of fighters. So Petr Yan goes in there. He talked about how hellacious his training camp was and all the things he had to do to try to prepare for Merab. And you're watching this, his takedown defense was on point. And if he was taken down, he popped right back up. This had to be discouraging, as well as this was using a ton of Merab's energy to try to get this man down and then only to have him pop back up, right? And the Merab things that normally work were not working. The little shenanigans, acting like you still got 10 more rounds of cardio to go, and all of these things, they weren't working on Petr. Petr was ready. Petr kept sticking that jab in his face, and every time Merab thought he had a chance to advance or move forward, bing, Petr Yan is sticking him with that jab, and that jab is throwing Merab off, and it's busting up his nose, it's busting up his cheek, it's busting up his mouth. You know what I'm talking about? Petr Yan is throwing that out there. That's keeping Merab at bay. It's making him think twice about doing his own striking, but it's also making him think twice about his entries into his takedowns. And his entries weren't the same that we've seen against other people. Those entries, these ain't the same type of entries that you had against Corey Sandhagen or against Sean O'Malley. These ain't the same entries. These is low rent, low budget entries. You know what I'm saying? These ain't Nordstrom entries. These is Family Dollar, Save-A-Lot entries. If y'all know what them stores are, if y'all familiar with that level of poverty. You know what I'm talking about? Bro, it wasn't on the same level. And you're watching Petr Yan keep jabbing his face off over and over again. And yeah, he was taken down, but Merab had a hard time keeping him down. And then you get later in the fight, Petr Yan takes down Merab, which was amazing to see, right? But then you also get to later in the fight where Merab, almost like to prove a point, I'm Merab, you're not getting ready to come here and style on me. And he lifts Petr Yan up, and he's walking around the cage with him for kind of like one of his, didn't walk too far. Mostly he actually kind of stood in place with this lift up. But he's got Petr Yan up on his shoulder, up in the air, right? And this is typically your stylish Merab slam to the ground type takedown, right? But this is Merab late in the fight after he's been getting his face jabbed off, and Petr Yan continues to get back to his feet, and you're seeing a little hole in his armor as far as like that stamina. I'm not saying he was gassed out. He definitely wasn't. But you're seeing Merab a little weathered is how I would label it. And as he slams into the ground, I'm sitting there watching, I'm like, bro, this is not the time to style on Petr Yan, because you kind of losing this fight. And you might want to conserve that energy. And so when he finally slams him down to the ground, Petr Yan is right back up. And Merab was like, oh, you know what I'm saying? And Petr Yan went to work. I don't know if the rest of y'all noticed, but Petr Yan pulled a baseball bat out in the middle of the octagon and kept bashing Merab right in the rib cage over and over again. Oh wait, now that I think about it, it wasn't even a baseball bat. It was his leg via this devastating body blow leg kick that he kept whing, whing, and he just kept throwing it out there and slamming it into Merab's body. And then he's landing these devastating uppercuts, devastating body work by Petr Yan, and it was not only visibly but audibly hurting Merab as he was yelling out in the octagon when he was being hit by a lot of these body kicks. And Daniel Cormier highlighted as much, man. Petr Yan did his thing, and the body work is really what got Merab. You know, we've seen other guys hurt Merab to the body, including Sean O'Malley, but Petr Yan had the perfect game plan to keep Merab at bay, because by the close to the fourth and fifth round, when he's really bashing Merab's body with those body kicks, by that point, if you notice, Merab was just kind of staying at kicking range of Petr, which is how Petr Yan could keep slamming those into his body. Because he's staying at kick range, because every time he enters, he gets his face jabbed off, and he's trying to figure out what entry can I use to try to take this man down to where he won't pop back up. Outstanding performance by Petr Yan. He captures the Bantamweight Championship of the world via decision. Two-time Bantamweight champion. He redeems himself from his wars with Aljamain Sterling. Petr Yan gracious in winning. Shouted out Aljamain Sterling, shouted out the team, talked about how good their team was. You could tell this man finally got that monkey up off his back as he defeated Merab. And also, more importantly, he defeated that Sarah Longo team, even though it was Longo out there. You could tell how much that meant to him. You could tell how much it meant to him to finally have that Bantamweight Championship back around his waist. Outstanding to see. Can't wait to see his next fight. I don't know. I'm sure that they will definitely run it back with Merab, but it just depends on how long Merab is going to be out, if he's sustained any injuries, how much time he's going to have to take, because one's also got to speak about the fact that 4 championship fights in 1 year might have been a step too high to climb for Merab. Shout out to both men. Outstanding fight. Merab wasn't no slouch. He wasn't no punk. He did his thing, but Petr Yan was just a step better. Outstanding performance. One of the best championship level performances I've seen out of anyone in all of 2025. Not the best, but one of the best by Petr Yan. Shout out to him, man. Let's move on. Let's talk about the co-main event. Alexandre Pantoja loses via stoppage. Via TKO stoppage. But what it boils down to, Joshua Van is your new flyweight champion of the world. You know, there was barely anything that happened in this fight in the beginning. A few strikes thrown, and then Alexandre, I believe, threw some sort of a kick. It's caught by Joshua Van. Joshua Van tries to push him back or shove it off as Alexandre falls backwards. He lands on his arm, and that's where the injury occurred. He kind of waved it off while he was on the ground. He knew he couldn't continue. Then the referee noticed. He waved it off, shouted to Joshua Van. He did not deliver a strike or a blow to a Pantoja that couldn't defend himself. And that ends the legendary run of Alexandre Pantoja. And you know, man, there's a lot of speculation on if the shoulder popped out of place. It looked like, from what you're seeing, his, you know, you're looking at it and it looked like his left elbow, it just went all that, I don't know, it looked like he broke his arm. That's what Joe Rogan was talking about. But they're saying that it was actually his shoulder. His shoulder popped out of place. They popped it back in place behind the scenes, but he's definitely going to have to get evaluated, might need surgery. I don't know where the injury was at. But, man, It was sad to see, bro. And it was also sad to see for Joshua Van, because they bring his family in the octagon. He wants to have his moment of winning the belt or the championship also, but it was almost hard to enjoy it for him. It was kind of a weird vibe because of how that fight ended. But nevertheless, there is a new flyweight champion of the world, and his name is Joshua Van. We will see where they go from there. Are they going to do him and Tetsuro Taira? I don't know. I guess it also depends on how long Pantoja is going to be out. But no doubt Pantoja will definitely get a rematch whenever he comes back. So we'll see how that goes, man. But that was sad to see. How about Brandon Moreno loses to the aforementioned Tetsuro Taira, right? Via KO/TKO stoppage. Here's the thing, man. Taira was looking good in this fight. Brandon Moreno was not looking out of this fight. I will say that. I've seen people talk about it both ways. I will say Taira was looking good in this fight. Yeah, he rocked Moreno. Yeah, it goes down to the ground. But when the referee called off this fight, referee Mark, it was a mark, because he did not have a good night at all. You know what I'm saying? I think referee Mark Smith had a horrible night. Terrible calls by that referee. But nevertheless, bro, I don't feel like Moreno was completely out when referee Mark Smith called that fight. I think he could have continued, because he wasn't flattened out on the ground or went slumped on the ground or anything like that. I believe he could have continued, but you know, there was definitely a protest by Moreno after the fight. But you know, Moreno's a nice guy, so he wasn't gonna go too far in on Mark Smith. But I definitely think that fight could have continued. But Tetsuro Taira moves forward. He defeats Brandon Moreno. I was heartbroken. I wanted to really see Moreno make that next run for the flyweight championship. He still has a chance, because he's just always gonna be a perennial favorite and a perennial guy at the top of the division. So it's not like he can't make it back with a win or two, especially a huge win. But still, that was sad to see, because I don't feel like he was out of it. Let's move on. How about Henry Cejudo is retired by Peyton Talbot, as Peyton Talbot goes out there, gets a 3-round decision. Shout out to Henry Cejudo, bro. I've never been a fan of Henry Cejudo off of the mic, or I'm sorry, not off of the mic, but out of the octagon and his shenanigans and the whole King of Cringe thing. But I've always been a huge fan of Henry Cejudo being the hard-nosed competitor that he is, right? And what you saw in this fight was not only him being that competitor, that Olympic grit. You know what I'm saying? When you see a lot of these Olympic athletes, you have to understand that these Olympic athletes, by virtue of them training so hard, only to go compete every 4 years, and that's their only chance, bro, they fight on a level. Their competitiveness is on another level. And to see Henry Cejudo go out there and put that on display when he was clearly outmatched, outgunned, you know, outaged, because Father Time has definitely taken its toll on Henry Cejudo. To see him bring that dog out in the second round when he was getting his whole face struck and boxed off, and to see him just get angry and start firing shots back at Peyton. Like, I ain't no punk, bro. I'm a 2-time champion. You're going to have to get me up out of here. That was outstanding to see. Shout out to Peyton Talbot, who goes out there and gets the win. He fought an outstanding fight. And shout out to Henry Cejudo. You know, shout out to the UFC for the package they put together for him retiring. You know, he had his words with Dana White after the fight. Dana White and him were very cordial with each other. That was also good to see, man. It was all around great. And Henry Cejudo rides off into the sunset. You know, shout out to him, man. Definitely is going to end up in the Hall of Fame by virtue of him being a 2-division champion, flyweight and bantamweight. So shout out to him. Peyton Talbot moves forward. Let's move on. Let's talk about a light heavyweight. Yanni Blocko, former light heavyweight champion of the world, goes out there and gets a draw with Bogdan. In my opinion, I believe Yanni Blocko should have won this fight. In my opinion, Jan Blachowicz won the first round and the third. He should have won it. I know they scored, I think the second round is a 10-8, and that's why it was a draw, but I don't agree with that. Man, Yanni Blocko got robbed here, but at least it wasn't a loss. It was a draw. So I don't know if they're going to run this back or what's going to happen, but that's how it played out, man. Let's move on. How about Grant Dawson getting his whole head knocked off by Manuel Torres? Finally. Shout out to Grant Dawson. He's had moments where I thought this guy might be alright, but I always felt like his chin had left him long ago. It was almost like it was one of those family situations where Grant Dawson and his chin have been divorced for a while, but they didn't want the rest of the family to know, you know what I'm saying? They might have had children together. They didn't really want the rest of the family to know that him and the chin had split, so they keep trying to hide it. They go to the family events, show up in separate cars, make up a lie on why they in separate cars, because they really not together. That's what I've always felt like about Grant Dawson. And man, you ain't had no chin for a long time, you know what I'm saying? And it was put on display as Manuel Torres goes out there, launches the rest of his head, because he lost his chin a year and a half ago, launched the rest of his head into the stratosphere, gets him up out of there. KO win by Manuel Torres in round 1. How about Terrence McKinney versus Chris Duncan? Terrence McKinney has the absolute one of the worst fight IQs you will ever see in mixed martial arts, right? This dude, in his last 2 fights where I felt like he could have went out and knocked out his opponent, he's trying to grapple. He's trying to submit guys. He's taking his time. He's a little bit more poised, right? And then you're finally like, okay, this is a good fight where you might want to go out there, showcase a little bit of grappling, and then maybe let the hands go and knock the guy out. He goes out there, he goes balls to the wall trying to knock the guy out. Clearly started to gas, and then he gets knocked out, and that's what he deserves, as he gets knocked out by Chris Duncan. I'm sorry, submitted. That's what he deserves. That's what he deserves. And frankly, he got rocked before the submission occurred, and he was rocked. And he kind of went down, he stumbled, and Chris got on top, started trying to wage war, and he got back to his feet again. And you're like, okay, McKinney might still have something left. And then he barely sustained any injuries or any damage, and he dropped back down to a knee again. And I was like, oh, he's cooked. It's over. He doesn't want to win. And that's one thing about Terrence McKinney, and that's why I've always criticized him, is I feel like if he goes out there and starts blowing the doors off an opponent, he's in the fight. But as soon as it starts to turn and go left, as soon as he was trying to make a right turn and he made that left on accident, he's out of the fight. He's already thinking about what he's going to do the very next day. He's no longer in it. And that's what I saw here. And yeah, he deserved to get submitted. Chris Duncan moves forward, wins by submission. How about Maycee Barber? Goes out there and redeems herself as she puts on an outstanding performance against Karine Silva. Karine Silva had numerous chances to try to get this fight back and keep it from going to decision, as well as she kept doing multiple illegal up kicks. But I don't really know what was going on with her game plan, because she had her chances against Maycee Barber, but she didn't take them. Maycee Barber goes out there, gets that win. Back in the win column, you could tell it was a huge relief off of her shoulders, you know, to get that win. And we'll see where she goes from here. She's clearly invested in her body. And so, you know, she might be trying to make a run. She might be trying to get all those eyes on her on Instagram and all the other socials, and that only plays out well. It only fares well for you in the octagon. See Mackenzie Dern, and now the 115-pound champion of the world, strawweight champion. So we will see where Maycee Barber goes from here. I know she's at flyweight, but still, keep that in mind. She could be making a run now. The UFC, after her upgrades, might be willing to try to give her favorable matchmaking so she can have that run. I think she's on a 6 or 7 fight win streak, so shout out to her either way it goes. How about Fares Zaim? Goes out there and defeats Nazim Sadnikov. Look, man, Fares has always been that dude, bro. He's always been that dude. French fighter, outstanding fighter, bro. He's always been solid. He's always been solid, but quiet as kept. He's low key. He's under the radar, and I think now he's going to really start getting the just the flowers that he deserves, because he's a good fighter, man. He's definitely up and coming there. He's one to watch out for at lightweight, but he has been for a while. It's just no one's been talking about him. Shout out to him as he goes out there, gets the win by KO, TKO stoppage in the second round. How about Marvin Vettori goes out there, loses via decision against Bruno Ferreira? Man, Bruno Ferreira came in overweight, you know what I'm saying? Wasn't in too far, you know, you know, to a regular person walking the streets, he was in good shape, but not the best shape that we've seen Bruno in the past. But Marvin Vettori is cooked, bro. I mean, yeah, he could still go out there and beat randos, but you know, he's not what he used to be in the octagon. I know he's dealt with some personal loss with the loss of his brother, so I don't know if he needs time away or whatever, but in my opinion, I think Marvin Vettori is cooked. Bruno Ferreira goes out there and gets the win. Edson Barboza versus Jalen Turner. Shout out to Jalen Turner. He makes his return after retirement to the octagon after a losing streak. He gets a win. Had a tremendous moment on the mic, but man, let's be honest. Edson Barboza, bro, you're ruining your legacy, bro. It's time to walk away. It's time to put the gloves down. You know, UFC matchmakers, give him someone that you know Edson could easily go out there and knock out quickly and get him up out of there, and let the man put down the gloves in the middle of the octagon. Jalen Turner gets a win, but it's time for Barboza to dip. How about Io Barinsky? Barinsky. I'm probably mispronouncing his last name. Goes out there and gets a win over Ibo Aslan. This fight was crazy. This fight was, as Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier described it, Daniel Cormier had a great time during this fight. If y'all heard him on the commentary, it sounded like he was on his sixth beer, you know, and they had just brought him a load of buffalo wings in his mug. Because I'm talking about Daniel Cormier was having a good time with blue cheese. You know what I'm saying? Maybe ranch if he felt froggy that night. You know what I'm talking about? But, bro, this was a barroom fight with skill. And these two men laid it all out there. Io goes out there and gets the win. Outstanding brawl for as long as it landed. Ends in KO in the first round. Mansour Abdul Malik goes out there and gets the win over Antonio Tricoli. Look, that's what we all expected, and he delivered. Outstanding, wins by submission in the first round. He obviously, you could tell the UFC is pushing him, but he's obviously one to keep an eye on. I'd be interested to see if anyone can push him for 3 rounds, really push him and take it to him, so we could kind of see how he would react to that. But that's what it was. And then Muhammad Naimov goes out there and takes a KO loss to Marion Santos. Marion Santos came in overweight, missed weight, but still, man, he was putting on a clinic, and it was only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time before, you know, Naimov was ready to engage in a way where he knew he was going to knock him out. Like, he knew, you could tell Santos knew it was going to happen. He just couldn't get Naimov to play into his trap. And once he did, it was a wrap. So, man, that was UFC 323, the last pay-per-view for now from the UFC, as they will be going to the Paramount platform next month, next year. 2026, January 2026 for UFC 324. From now on, all you gotta do is be a Paramount subscriber, which Paramount got a couple other little shows on there that I might mess around with, so I'm not really hating on it. And you're not gonna have to pay for the pay-per-views anymore. This was a tremendous card, action-packed, multiple finishes. You know, it put a damper on it when you saw the Alexandre Pantoja loss, but still, outstanding card. We're gonna revisit that here in a, you know, probably once or twice this week, because there were some things to really touch upon, if you will, on this card. But man, outstanding showing. So let me know what you thought about UFC 323. Let me know if you were heartbroken by the Alexandre Pantoja Joshua Van fight. Let me know what you thought about the Petr Yan win, which was an outstanding performance. And I definitely do want to thank you guys. Please like, subscribe, comment. I appreciate all the love I've been getting lately from you guys. And once again, I do want to thank you for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.